Hey, it's Jack. Sitting with me is my friend Joe Fye. He's got a podcast, Radio Free BTC. Joe, what is your podcast about?
Bitcoin.
That's cool. Do you cover other things like Minnesota politics?
Bitcoin.
What about national politics?
Bitcoin.
Do you ever get into sports? I don't talk about it a lot, but people love sports. Do you ever talk about sports?
Bitcoin.
Okay. There you have it. If you want a podcast about only Bitcoin, download Radio Free BTC wherever podcasts are sold.
It's the Jack Tomczak Show.
Welcome back to the show. We just said goodbye to Dr. John Spry. If you missed part of that, just go download the podcast. Look for my name on where podcasts are sold, and you can catch the whole thing. Joining us now over the phone is Republican gubernatorial candidate Michelle Benson. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing sort of well. I got a letter from the Minnesota Department of Revenue that I meant to bring in to ask you about. But it said something about after I filed my taxes, some tax law things changed and they adjusted my taxes, and here's more money.
It might have been unemployment because in Minnesota, we didn't forgive taxes on extra unemployment until after you probably already filed, or a PPP loan if you had a business. That all happened afterwards. So you're probably okay, because there were things that happened after the fact.
Here's my new way of starting interviews with people running for governor. Ask them a question completely out of left field that involves state government and see if they have an answer.
And they did.
Because you did. Maybe not all of them will. Okay, let's talk COVID. The newspapers tell me that things in Minnesota, infection rates are the worst in the nation. And this is like just as bad as it was last fall, and the sky is falling. And I'm wondering, why hasn't Governor Walz declared a state of emergency to deal with this if things are so bad?
Because he doesn't have access to those emergency powers, and many of these things wouldn't be fixable under emergency powers. So we are short-staffed, and we need staff in the state. That could be done under emergency powers, but there's a legislative proposal that would allow out-of-state medical professionals to practice in Minnesota for more than 60 days without having to go through the Minnesota licensing process.
Okay.
We already do this for doctors. We don't do it for respiratory therapists. We don't do it for nurses, et cetera. So if you are a respiratory therapist who went through the wave, say in Texas, and you want to come up here and work, you can't do that except under emergency powers or if the legislature acts.
Is that a good thing to have? Like I have a Minnesota driver's license, but I can drive in any state. Is it good that Minnesota, I'm sure other states have this too, have restrictions on medical professionals? Because it's not like the licensing in other states is going to be that different than ours. Is this a necessary regulation or not?
Well, and physicians have a physician licensure compact. So physicians can practice across state lines with other compact states. And so what a compact is legislation, boilerplate legislation. Every state passes it the same, and you all agree that your licensed professional is going to live within that compact. Your licensing is going to meet those standards, and you're going to comply. So if your physician does something that would put their license at risk, that gets communicated to all the other compact states so that the physician can't move. So that's in place for physicians. We just did it for psychologists and psychiatrists, which is important for telehealth, mental telehealth.
That is super important.
Yes. And so there are other professions that this is already in place for. Generally in the United States, medical professionals are trained to a high standard. Nurses, for example, have to pass a national standard. And so I am comfortable with medical professionals from other states coming here to practice in this model.
Okay. Why doesn't Tim Walz have stumble? Does he? I know he can he declare an emergency again? Like, there's nothing stopping him from doing that, right? Or do
I
they
don't know for sure.
Okay.
And you're supposed to know everything when you're running for governor, but I haven't talked with our Senate counsel to see what happens if he does, because he gave it up for that declaration. And I don't think you can declare for the same emergency twice, but I need to go to counsel and find that out for sure, which is why I'm saying no, but.
Okay. Where are we in the COVID battle? The paper tells me that it's just as bad as it was last fall. I don't feel like it's just as bad as it was last fall. I got vaccinated. I don't think I'm going to get my kids vaccinated. Should I get my kids vaccinated? Can schools put in a rule that says they have to be vaccinated? Help me.
Our public schools can't. That has to go through. There's in statute, there's already a definition of how you add vaccinations to a schedule.
Okay.
And so
because my kids have to be vaccinated for other things before they go to public school, right?
They have to, like measles.
Yeah.
Measles, mumps, rubella, polio, there's Vassarilla's on the schedule of chickenpox. So yes, there are already mandates for vaccines, and Minnesota has exemptions in place for parents who choose those exemptions.
Okay.
So we would anticipate that if MDH wanted to mandate this vaccine, it would have to go through that same process. Now, keep in mind, MDH doesn't mandate influenza, and children die of influenza. Mm-hmm. So we need to keep in mind that while this is a novel virus, although I don't know how long it's a novel virus, but we are getting more immunity into the people that could transmit the virus. And so it is my belief that this will become endemic after people are exposed or vaccinated. We rely on immunity in order to fight viruses. And that's what we're going to have to go through in order to get this into sort of our normal viral cycle.
It's never going away.
It's never going away.
Yeah.
So you can't crush it, beat it, isolate it, eliminate it. It's going to be here. And so we're going to have to get used to whatever measures we want to take to keep this from spreading. You asked if it's bad. You and I might not feel it, but nursing homes, hospitals, ambulance drivers, they are all feeling it. So hospitals are not doing elective procedures. They're only doing those procedures that are life-threatening.
Okay, so, and that's where we were last fall.
That's where we were last November.
So other states are not as overwhelmed, like other states' medical facilities are not as overwhelmed as Minnesota's are, right? Like if we're going to get traveling help, they need to come from places that aren't also overwhelmed.
You saw Florida and Texas had a lot of shaming this summer. Now it's in Minnesota. This was the same cycle we went through last year.
Okay.
So the governor did call up National Guard. There were volunteers for something called decompression sites. Now they're going to be people under orders who can be trained to be CNAs. My preference would be to get licensed medical professionals from other states into the state, but that will require a special session. And that is part of the conversation.
Is that, you think it's going to happen?
I don't know.
Well, if things are as bad as we're being told they are, and the fix for that is to bring in medical professionals from other states, and a special session has to happen in order for that to happen, that should happen then, shouldn't it?
Well, except if you go into special session, everybody wants something. And so if it was just about staffing, maybe, but everybody wants something in a special session.
And the only person who can call a special session is the governor, which for the time being is Tim Walz.
Yes.
But if this is a huge emergency, I don't think that Governor Tim Walz, would he really let the fear of other things coming up in a special session get in the way of him calling a special session in order to authorize out-of-state medical professionals from coming in to help? That seems rather small if he were to want to not do that.
He did make a list of things that his administration would support, and our caucus made a list of things that we would support, and the nursing homes and hospitals have a list of things they would support. And so we're trying to see where they all fit. And then If it's me, I want to ward off political shenanigans. And so I think that's where the governor's trying to find a path right now. And Senator Miller, who's our new majority leader, is navigating this pretty well. He knows the gravity of the staffing shortages, and I think he's doing a pretty good job. And me not being in leadership anymore kind of moved to an advisory role as health chair.
Well, I don't see how you're running for governor, and Paul Gazelka's running for governor, and then the governor's running for governor. Who thinks there would be political shenanigans at play in a special session? That's just ridiculous.
Yeah. You're funny, Jack.
I am funny. That's why I do this. Okay. But it'll happen. It'll have to happen, right? Because that's the only way to fix the problem.
It's the only way to fix the problem.
Okay.
But the longer we wait, the harder it gets to fix the problem.
Now, next November is a forever away.
Right.
What's your best guess? COVID's not going away. Is COVID as a political issue going to be done by then, or is this going to continue?
It will be less intense.
I think we thought that a year ago.
By this time. It is less intense than it was a year ago because you don't feel it, right? Your life is pretty normal.
2 hours in line at the Walgreens pharmacy today.
Okay.
So I don't know.
There is.
With somebody behind me honking. It's like, I'm not the pharmacist. They can't hear you through the glass. Stop honking.
So there are staffing shortages. There are all kinds of other things that are going on that might still be here next fall. But we're going to have, I think, viral resurgences every fall for a while. Okay. And then pretty soon they're just going to be normalized. But COVID won't be the primary issue in the election next October and November.
What will it be?
Public safety, education, inflation, how much it costs to live. Are you going to seal those in an envelope and then open them next October 15th?
No, I'm going to open them in a couple minutes in our next segment. It was public safety, education, and inflation?
And the cost of living. Yes, inflation.
Of living.
Rising prices.
All right, hang tight. We're going to come back on the other side of the break. I'm talking with State Senator Michelle Benson, a Republican candidate for governor on the AM 1280 The Patriot.
Hey, it's famous radio host turned podcaster turned radio host Jack Tomczak. If you're enjoying the show and want to support the podcast, please visit patreon.com/Jack Tomczak and throw in a nickel or two to keep the lights on.
Welcome back to the Jack Tomczak Show. I'm talking with State Senator Michelle Benson, who's one of the Republican candidates for governor. And we left off, we're talking COVID in the last segment. And now I think I'm going to pick a handful of topics that I feel will be relevant, not only now, but also in a year from now. Public safety, education, inflation, and the cost of living.
I agree.
So famous podcaster Benjamin Cruzy, I don't know if you've ever heard his podcast. He does it every day. It's called Up and At 'Em. It's okay. Yeah. Used to be better, but a long time ago. Anyway, another story. Tells me that the polls that he has looked at, he pays more attention to the news than I do, says that public safety is the top concern right now.
Yes.
What do we need to do in Minnesota to address public safety? Well, what are the problems in Minnesota? What do we need to do? What is Tim Walz not doing? And what will you do as governor? We
have chronically understaffed police departments because we spent the better part of a year with the loud drumbeat from the left and some willing participants in the media saying that the police were the problem. There are some police officers who are bad actors, and the police profession needs to have a way of rooting them out or reforming the way they do policing. But we need police. You need to feel safe in order to function in life. And for those of us who go visit Minneapolis, you can choose not to, but there are people who live in Minneapolis, who live in Brooklyn Center, who live in Brooklyn Park, who have to deal with shootings on a regular basis. There's a gang war, and Broadway in Minneapolis is the dividing line. There are people whose lives are impacted every single day.
I've told this story before, but last July when I got hired by the Minnesota Republican Party, I went down to North Minneapolis to hang out with our friend Jamar and talk to some people down there. And I asked, regular people who live in North Minneapolis, what do they think about the defund the police movement? And without exception, they're against it.
Yeah.
These are people who live in the worst part of the state who have to deal with the reality. And the last thing they want to do is get rid of the police who stand between them and the gang war.
Did you look at the charter amendment and the intensity of the no votes in the places where the most people get shot?
Yeah.
They want there to be police. They don't want their kids harassed, but they want police. And so we need to stop bashing police officers. Right now, Mayor Fry is trying to add 150 officers back. That would leave still a gap. Qualified people applying for open positions in Minnesota are down precipitously. We are not even building a pipeline for policing. So we need to work on respecting the police. We need to work on retaining the police by giving them the supports they need, whether it is training, it's mental health support, it's helping them improve their profession. We need to recruit people. We need the policing to be an honorable profession where you get trained and do loan forgiveness or do retention grants once you're qualified so that you will want to stay in the profession here in Minnesota. Then when the police have done their job, they hand the bad guy over to a prosecutor. Well, if the prosecutor is just waiving parts of the law or not charging people for things like straw buyer, the police feel their job is futile, pointless. And so they've done all this work and now nothing's going to happen. Or if you're a minor who's carjacking, you carjack, the police arrest you, the judge and the prosecutor like, well, we can't really hold him, let him go. And they go carjack that afternoon again, because there's no consequence. And then when we get to judges who deviate down on sentencing are a big problem.
So, that I worked for Americans for Prosperity for a couple of years. And one of their big issues, which oddly enough, I think they quieted down on last year. But one of their big issues is criminal justice reform. And I bought into that while there, and I'm sticking with it and I like it. There are some things that carry a harsh penalty that I don't think there should be a harsh penalty for. And what we don't want is and to go back 20 years when I was taking a criminology class in college, the criminology professor said, we want to put people in jail that we're afraid of or that we're mad at. And we got to put people in that we're afraid of. And we don't want a cell being taken up by somebody that we're mad at. We want to teach a lesson to and let somebody else who's dangerous out.
Exactly.
Where's the line? How do we put away the people that need to be put away? And how do we not put away people who don't need to be put away? Because we don't want to put somebody in prison who made a stupid mistake and then going to prison, that's their entry into a life of crime. What's the right answer? What's the perfect formula? And
I don't know about perfect.
I demand prevention.
And then I know all the answers. Yes. Because this is what we
always have.
Crimes of violence there are sentencing guidelines in place and we need to stick with them. And I think we can take a look at some of the drug crimes, for example, marijuana. At what point does it become a civil charge instead of a criminal charge so that a person gets a signal, we need your life back on track, but we're not going to incarcerate you so you lose your job and you lose your connection with your kids. And so I can't tell you where the line is, but let's talk about finding that space, where we can have a conversation. You're not accused of wanting criminals to go free, but that we keep people safe from crimes of violence. You break and enter, you steal a catalytic converter, you carjack, you need to spend some time in incarceration.
What can let's go back a step. The atmosphere and the a public sentiment about police. How much can a governor do? For the Minneapolis Police Department, how much of that is up to the Minneapolis Police Department and the Minneapolis City Government? How much does the governor have an impact on that?
And we don't want to throw Minneapolis under the bus.
Oh, St. Paul sucks too.
Crime will spread. It's just a fact. These deviants, the people who want to destabilize our society, are happy to drive into another neighborhood, to carjack, to go up to, Corcoran and see people left their cars in their driveway and then open their garage door and go in and steal stuff.
And they probably did.
Yeah.
Because up there you can do that.
Yeah. So the criminals don't care what the lines are.
Right.
So we have to have policies that aren't about where the lines are. So as I said, as governor, I would support strong mental health supports for police officers because their job is stressful. Maybe in a small town like Wells, maybe it's not stressful every single day. Pretty sure Minneapolis and St. Paul are stressful every day. Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center. Let's make sure they're supported. Yeah.
Yeah. And you and I have talked a lot about mental health stuff. And for people who doubt that mental health, like the mental health angle is worth pursuing, like there are regular people in life, me, one of them, who I go to therapy every other week. And I don't deal with, like, there's nobody trying to kill me. I'm never the first one through the door. I'm never interjecting myself in somebody's potentially dangerous, violent domestic abuse situation. Yet this is what police officers do every day. And they're human. Like that'll mess you up if you don't address it. And therapy helps people address those things.
And we learned with the military, PTSD can be dealt with, or just, even if you don't have clinical PTSD, just being able to talk about the really hard things that you saw and did. I mean, if you're a police officer, how many suicides have you been to?
Yeah.
How many times have you walked into a domestic and had to figure out who was at fault and which one was going to hurt you? And I don't even know. And so to law enforcement officers who are listening to this, I don't know what your day looks like, but I've been on some ride-alongs and heard some stories. And so I'm trying to understand that so that we can put policies in place so that we can have law enforcement officers who make a career of protecting the people of Minnesota. And then prosecutors, we need to make sure we have laws in place so prosecutors don't waive important things like guns being used during a violent crime. We cannot waive that. That has to be a felony level charge. And then, or step up that felony level charge. And then appoint judges who believe that a stable society requires a safe society, not retribution, not we're going to, ruin someone's life because they did something stupid one time. But there is no reason a chronic carjacker is back on the streets in an afternoon or a week. There's no reason for that.
I agree. You're very smart. And you're going to get, for the people who just don't like police officers,
wait till they call 911 because they're going to be really happy when there's a police officer when they call 911.
Well, and nobody is for the bad cops. Nobody wants the bad cops to continue being police officers. And police are going to be better if the mental health part of their life is taken care of. Like they'll make better decisions when they're out in the field, and they're going to make fewer mistakes and maybe no mistakes. And like, this is good. This is good for everybody if we just do the job right and let them do the job right. The answers are out there.
Amen.
All right. I'm not going to hold you to another segment because I know you're very busy. I'll practice my monologuing in the next segment, but I've got a minute left. How goes the campaign?
Good. It's delegates and donors at this point. So if you want to be a delegate, go to michelleforminnesota.com. That's Michelle, the number 4mn.com. If you want to donate, you can go there too. That would be appreciated. If you liked what you heard, share this podcast on Facebook, on social media, and we'll share it off of our account. We appreciate support and enthusiasm and direction. Tim Walz is absolutely beatable, the right candidate and the right message, and I'm the right candidate, and our ideas are better.
All right. Thank you very much. State Senator Michelle Benson, one of the Republican candidates for governor. Best of luck, and I appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Don't tell me what to do.
Okay. Don't have a good Thanksgiving unless you really feel like it, Jack.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, good. Thank you. Thank you. And you're gone.